Hi everyone, it's Natalie, and today I wanted to introduce the Amenti Oracle. And this is a deck that I acquired this week on Monday, and I opened it by myself. I came home and I really felt a need to open and encounter with it and be with it alone. And I got it after watching Havana from Sparkle Divine Tarot do a walkthrough and discussion of it. And I will link her video below because it was excellent. And she goes into the detail, a lot of detail about the box, the packaging, the quality of the cards, the paper stock, all of it. And I don't really feel like doing that because what I'm really more interested in talking about is the felt experience of working with an oracle deck like this one. So when I got back into working with tarot and oracle in late December, early January, this last year, 2018, 2019, what I was really looking for was a deck or the decks that communicate a level of depth in spiritual experience and journey and acquired wisdom that's palpable through the work of the artist. The first deck that I acquired, which is hiding back here somewhere, the first deck that I acquired on that journey, which I sit with on my desk every day and do not use nearly enough, is the Tree Spirit Oracle by Simon H. Lilly. And it is a very homemade deck, or it was when I got it. It seems that he's reprinted it. But what I noticed right away through working with this deck and these cards was how palpable the felt experience of his knowledge and his intuition, his wisdom, basically the fruit of the spiritual journey that he has had with these plant beings. Even though the cards themselves are very unobtrusive, they don't say much. For some, the bright colors or the use of glyphs might be somehow off-putting, right? It's very bright. It doesn't seem to say much. I don't know. I think it depends on what people are looking for in oracle decks. Maybe the homemade, home printed, home cut, trimmed, etc. Feel of the deck is not something that appeals to a lot of people. The packaging is very modest, but the price was not. And it's not because the expense of printing them like this is great. So I really doubt that he makes very much from the deck. What he wants to do is have contact through the deck, I think, I'm guessing, and to the people using it by the hands-on part of it. And it's a very rich experience. The book that comes with it is huge. I mean, it's not that huge, right? It's a nice, big, thick book. It is self-published. And he sent lots of supplemental paper. But, there's like a full page, for each card. And I have loved working with this deck, and I need to come back to it because I was reminded picking up the Amenti Oracle, which doesn't have a lot of the factors that this one does, reminded me, of how valuable I have found working with a deck like this. Not just because it's, related to trees and nature and plants, really just trees, but also the depth of of the messenger. The messenger of this oracle had contact with them in a way that offers me the possibility of knowing it for myself. And that is what I find so appealing. His choice of colors, the way that he has expressed each tree through the use of a glyph that's unique to the tree and not based on any other system, it's his own, is really specific. And when I pick these cards up and work with them, it's like coming into contact with an old friend, with something deep within me, something that is deeply present in the world, in the universe, is immediate. It's very, very immediate. This is one of my favorite cards. It's Plum, the plum tree. So it's a pleasant one to pause on. It has a lovely and delightful meaning. So I say that because it's rare that I pick up a tarot deck or really an oracle deck either that has that quality in it, to it. This one has that. This deck has got that quality. And I'm just going to flip through it. I'm going to say, tune everything else that you're dealing with out. And I am going to read the titles as I flip through and see how you feel after a flip through of the deck. So this card, it's not in order because I've worked with it. I create harmony. I consume only my fair share. I affirm that all life is sacred. I hold purity in high esteem. I honor animals with reverence. I benefit with gratitude. I speak positively of others. I am humble. I am kind. I speak with good intent. I am trustful in my relationships. I give blessings. I invoke laughter, which I really love. I always hope I invoke laughter. I am open to love in various forms. I spread joy. I keep my own counsel. I offer words of good intent. And that's also the cover. I relate in peace. I honor virtue. I care for the earth. I advance through my own abilities. I remain in balance with my emotions. I do good. I am forgiving. I respect the property of others. I act respectfully of others. I converse with awareness. I speak with sincerity. I live in truth. I can be trusted. I regard all altars with respect. I achieve with integrity. I am peaceful. I do the best I can. I embrace the all. I am accepting. I follow my inner guidance. I praise the goddess and the god. I keep the waters pure. I give offerings that are genuine. I listen to opposing opinions. I communicate with compassion. So I can't go through and read the cards in this deck without feeling wonderful at the end of it. So I'm really curious about how you feel after hearing them, seeing them. There is a really beautiful, beautiful intention behind these cards. You know, the intention of the creator of Jennifer Sodini is that they help to bring us to a place of having a lighter heart, a feather light heart. So the story of Mott, which I'm familiar with, but not, I would say I'm familiar with it, but I would not say that it's a story I've ever paid much attention to until now. But the idea that our heart is weighed against an ostrich feather, and you hope that your heart is lighter than the ostrich feather. So she talks in the book about all of the beautiful, beautiful things that we can do that lighten our heart. And so holding these cards as an intention, as a way of walking through the world, as a way of being in the world. It's amazing. And it immediately, reading it, restores that sense of who I am in myself. It restores a mirror of something that I felt I was starting to lose recently, just not having the mirror of being with other people who are not my family of origin has been tough, because their mirror of me doesn't look like this. And over the months, a lot of the positive mirrors in my life have disappeared for various reasons. Job changes, moving, having less money and availability and time to go and be in some of the familiar places that I go. Those are all things that, as they change your mirror, can begin to mirror back things to you that are untrue, that are unhelpful, or that feed parts of yourself that are less helpful, kind of toxic, And finding things that can mirror back to you the intention that you have for yourself in the world is tremendous. It's priceless. So that fueled a great deal of where I wanted to come from with this, was in wanting to mirror back to this community how I feel about it, which is very loving and tremendous, because at a moment in my life where I have felt very isolated and very unsure of what's happening next and how I'm going to shape my life, I have found beautiful friends and people here, real friends and real people, who are a big part of why I have thrived over the last 6 months. Because when I started my channel 6 months ago, I was feeling very, very broken. And 6 months later, I don't feel broken. I feel very restored. And I feel as though I'm able to move forward in a way with my life that is more in harmony with intentions that I hold for myself that I had perhaps forgotten or not been reminded of. So in encountering with this, the book is wonderful. Jennifer Sodini's writing is just exquisite, and I may see if I can find a chunk here to offer that's really, really good. I don't know anything about the emerald tablets. This is the first encounter I've had with that, or the relationship of Thoth to Mott was new to me as well. And of course, in true form, I've spent a little time going and researching and finding out whatever I can about them, about all three of them. And it's really remarkable, really remarkable. from what I've observed of reading just the cards and some of the book, and from what I've observed of listening to people read from the Emerald Tablets and talk about the Emerald Tablets, regardless of its history, regardless of whether it's true or not, there is something of great truth and great value within it. I'm not here to comment on really whether Thoth was really an Atlantean. Doesn't really matter, because what matters is the truth that comes through that writing and the transformation that has clearly taken place within the author of this deck, author and creator. That's very real. I mean, as a Buddhist, or someone who does their best, utmost, to practice Buddhism, sometimes better than others, honestly. There are a lot of there are a lot of sutras and scriptures that are attributed to the Buddha that we really don't know the origin of, and yet we're pretty sure it's probably not the Buddha's writing, the historical Buddha. Gautama Siddhartha. Some people don't realize, and I didn't when I first started really getting serious about thinking I was going to become a Buddhist, and really take vows and so on. What I didn't realize going in was that there was a real historical guy, and not just sort of a spiritual being that was kind of godlike in some respect. So it was a shock to learn about the human being. And so when we say that something is or is not attributable to the Buddha, we're speaking, historically, right? We're speaking in a very exoteric manner about, whether we can trace the document and carbon dating on it, if that's possible, and that sort of thing. And yet, despite the inability to trace the vast majority of the Buddhist canon back to the historical Buddha, there is a line of truth, a thread, if you will, which is what the word sutra means. It means thread. There's a thread of truth that underpins everything in Buddhist scripture. The scriptures that are heavily canonized, let's say. You can recognize that it's good, that it's Dharma, that it rings true like a bell. It rings and it resonates. And as I read the book for the Amenti Oracle, and I encounter with the Emerald Tablets and what's written in them, there is a similar ring to it that's really kind of astonishing and just a little bit shocking. And I started to listen to someone read them last night before bed. And as I was reading the comments, it was a YouTube video, and I can link it below. And as I was listening to it and thinking, maybe I'll fall asleep to this. Maybe that would be okay. Because I sometimes do that. I like to listen to something as I'm falling asleep. I read the comment section and found that a lot of people were going to do that and do that on a regular basis. They feel that it influences their dreams and influences their sleep very positively. They find it uplifting. They find that it raises a sense of their vibration and the sense of their heart getting bigger. And so I left it on. And I had a dream very, very early this morning that I thought I didn't think I was going to share, actually. I thought it was significant and very interesting. But it wasn't until I was thinking about making this video that I thought I should maybe share it, that it might have value beyond me. In the dream, as we often are, I was with people who I didn't really recognize or know. They're not people who are part of my normal life. And we were in a school or in a building that was, kind of like a school building or a place of learning, we'll say. I wouldn't have said it was an elementary school. It could have been a college building. It was a place of learning. And there were all of these strange people dressed in various different types of combat gear. And Game of Thrones, Star Wars, ancient Rome, whatever, name your poison. They were attired in things that came from all parts of fiction and history. Not a lot of them, maybe 8 or 10, but more than I could possibly take on myself without a weapon. And I looked down, as you sometimes do in these dreams, right? And I was unarmed. And I remembered thinking, I didn't ask for this. I don't want to have any fights. This isn't what I came here for. And other people around me were suddenly coming up, we were all unarmed, but they were suddenly coming up with weapons. And I saw someone have like a big broadsword. Those things are heavy. I will tell you, those are heavy. I used a broadsword briefly when I was doing combat training for stage combat. Oh my gosh. Really heavy. Yeah, big, unwieldy. I can't even imagine. So, the person next to me picks up this like He-Man looking, big broadsword looking thing and goes hacking away and engaging into a fight with these, warrior looking people that were dressed as warriors from various, different times and spaces in fiction and reality. Even though they weren't actually fighting with us, nobody was fighting. We were just standing like facing off. And this like battle ensued, and I realized like, oh God, I don't want to do this. This isn't what I came here for. And I'm not picking up I don't want a sword. I don't want to have to deal with the heavy weight of a gun. Wait a minute, what's over there? I saw a classroom. And so I went into this classroom and I shut the door and I locked it. And several of these, armored warrior individuals came to the door, and there was like a long, some of these, industrialized like educational doors, there's like a long window that's got, that crisscross grid on it so that it's not easily, the window's not easily broken. I remembered thinking I was very grateful for that window and the way that it's structured at that moment. And they began hacking at the window, and I thought, wow, this isn't going to stop until they don't see me. So I need to get away from the window, and I need to switch out the lights so that it's dark in here. So I switched off the lights, and it was taking a while because it was like fluorescent lights that kind of need to dim themselves and click off or something. And the lights went out, and I got out of the way of the door while that was happening, and it died down and went away. And I could still hear it in the distance. And I thought, well, that's fine. There's nothing, I thought nobody's going to get killed, probably. But I just don't, it's not what I want to do. And there's nothing wrong with sitting down and choosing not to engage in a fight, in a battle, where there's nothing to be lost, there's nothing to be won. I don't know what the fight was about. And I actually can't say that it wasn't going to wind up, there were going to be mortal wounds, wounds that would hurt, not mortal, there would be wounds, there'd be wounding, bad pain, but for nothing. Just, there was nothing to gain, which is really kind of an interesting metaphor for education and being in education, actually. There's a lot of infighting. There's a lot of battles. There's a lot of wounding, but there's rarely anything ever to be gained from it. There's just not much to win. And it was interesting. It was an interesting dream. And when I woke up this morning and I was lying in bed just tracing it back and thinking it through, something occurred to me as I was lying there. If you've never seen the film Wargames starring Matthew Broderick, it's really good. It's a really, really good film. And, the whole premise is that they're playing a game at some point. I mean, this is a rough, very rough summary. They're playing this game, and toward the end of the film, he realizes somewhere in the middle of the film that it's not really a game, that he's actually managed to tap into nuclear missiles and started some kind of really potentially like world-ending kind of game. And the lesson that he learns, and I don't think I spoiled the journey of the film by giving the lesson of it actually, but the lesson he learns is that the only way to win is not to play the game. The only way to win is not to play the game. And that is something that's really hard to learn in life. But there are a lot of games that we play in life on a regular basis that there's nothing to gain. There's no real way to win in the way that it's engaged. And the best winning, the greatest winning, comes from not playing the game. So I feel like, when I pick up this oracle, this is a really helpful tool simply by choosing, not even saying I'm not playing the game, just making a very specific choice, which then helps us recognize, wow, is that in harmony with this choice or not? And when it's weighed against what we find here, it becomes clear. Clarity is then very, very possible. So it's not saying don't do something. It's saying I am doing something. I am accepting. I follow my inner guidance. I praise the goddess, and the God. I keep the waters pure. I give offerings that are genuine. I listen to opposing opinions. I communicate with compassion. So it gives us a doing in order that the being becomes much more possible. And when there's a good way and a lighthearted, open-hearted, open-minded way of being, of doing and being, it's easier to see, is this something that I want to say, right? Or is this something that I want to do? Or is it going to conflict with the intentions that I set? So I offer that today because I feel like we could all maybe benefit from that. Like I can benefit from that every day of my life. There's a lot of need, I think, in the world right now, on the whole, for us to have a space like that for ourselves and for each other. I want to just finish this. I'm realizing how long it's getting. I'm going to just shuffle these really quick and pull a card for the end of the video. And we'll look at what the book says. Whoop. So we've got, I keep my own counsel. Let's see. So one frustrating thing is that they're not numbered. So you do have to flip through the book. Queen Osset and I were talking about this on Instagram the other day. And she recommends using using a little pen, like a skinny little pen to number them so that it's easier to find them in the book. So I keep my own counsel. And I won't be editing this because as a business owner, I find that I'm needing to shift my focus elsewhere. Okay, here we go. It's number 16. Wow, this is a long one. Oh my goodness. So I keep my own counsel. Mat, as a living principle, is the embodiment of order, and in living this principle, our daily experience becomes a personification of fairness, truth, and balance to circumvent chaos through actions that are just. Just being the key word, as it is defined by, quote, an unbiased equilibrium. And she throws in a Chinese proverb that says, to die is to stop living, but to stop living is something entirely different than dying. Pardon me, I have to take a sip. Got a little fizzy water there. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, when a soul enters the underworld of Duat, the heart is placed on a scale to be weighed against the feather of Mat as the measure for the actions and inactions of their lifespan. Before the heart can be weighed, the deceased would have to recite the 42 negative confessions of Mat as taken from the papyrus of Ani. What was not done would have equal bearing to what was done, justification of the life lived being perceived by how closely the soul aligned with Mat's laws of harmony. So, there are the 42 negative confessions of Mat. The law of Mat may find its closest correspondence in the Tao, as the Tao is believed to be the underlying natural law of the universe, yin and yang never being separate, as equal and interconnected as the heart and feather on the scales. In living the ideal of keeping your own counsel, it is important to ask yourself who you are behind closed doors when no one is watching and you are left to your own devices, acting only as the perceiver, not the perceived. Do your actions remain balanced in what you do, who you are, and how you live? Does what you do not I see what she did here. Does what you do not do, this is tricky to read aloud. Does what you do not do have the same intention as what is done? We got there. We got there eventually. Keeping your own counsel is practicing mindfulness in each moment by paying attention to your behavior and remembering to remain in alignment with truth, whether you are the object of perception or the subject who perceives. It is understanding that chaos and contrast give birth to clarity and order. Clarity and order is found when we are met with and triumph over disorder. the principle of Mott, the nature of the Tao, invisible forces that govern all of what is visible, have a timeless wisdom that has trickled through all parables, fairy tales, myths, and mystical manuscripts from all ages. May we be reminded of the story of Joseph the Canaanite, or Joseph of the Technicolor Dreamcoat of modern days, a permanent figure in both the Bible and the Quran, and a hologram bringing color to the prism of the human story. A seer and sage in his own right, represented by his coat of many colors, and the preferred miracle child of his parents, Joseph's revelatory dreams became visions made manifest. This enraged his older brothers because they felt as though he perceived himself to be above them, and out of anger they sold him into slavery. Joseph was brought to Egypt and became slave to Potiphar, and may be pronouncing that wrong, captain of the Pharaoh's guard, but quickly advanced to servant, then superintendent. When Potiphar's wife, Zuleika, made a romantic advance on Joseph and he denied her, she became angry and falsely accused him of rape. Thus Joseph was thrown into prison. The Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and baker shared Joseph's cell with him. Both suffered from powerful nightmares which Joseph was able to interpret. He surmised that the messages of the dreams were that the chief cupbearer would be freed, but the chief baker would be hanged. His accurate predictions caught the attention of the Pharaoh, who himself had been suffering from unresolved dreams, and after Joseph again accurately predicted the astral revelations, 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of famine, the Pharaoh freed Joseph, made him chief vizier, and renamed him Zaphanath Paneah. Again, pronouncing these things are not something I had prepared for, so please forgive me if you know the appropriate pronunciation. In the 2nd year of famine, Joseph's brothers were sent to Egypt to buy goods, but did not recognize him when standing in his presence, as so many years had passed since they had deceived him. Anger entered Joseph's heart, and he wanted revenge. However, redemption was found through forgiveness, and he eventually made peace with his brothers and reunited with his family under the blessing of the Pharaoh. Essentially, all lived their own version of a happily ever after. If Joseph hadn't been thrown into slavery and forced to use his mind, heart, morals, and intuition to go from slave to vizier, perhaps all would have starved when the eventual famine found its way to the land, and the virtue of humbleness may have never entered the hearts not only of Joseph, but his brothers as well. The consolation of keeping one's own counsel comes when the idealized human understands that the mysteries of fate and the manifestations of dreams both spring from the same well, the all-seeing, all-knowing, interconnected mind that is present in every myth and memory. Contrast constructs consciousness, and consciousness, like a rubber band once stretched, never returns to its prior dimensions. Usefulness being found not in what is no more, but rather what is. Wow. So that was kind of a deep dive. It was a deeper dive than I had anticipated, certainly. And interesting that that was the one that jumped out of the deck after mentioning the dream that I had. But I offer this to all of us, to all of you. Keep your own counsel. Trust yourselves. It's something I want for everyone. It's what I certainly work for myself. Because when we're able to do that, there's just no replacement. There's no replacement. So I wish all of you the most beautiful, peaceful weekend. May your weekend be blessed, and may your hearts be light. I was about to say, may your lights be heart. may your hearts be light. And may you have a beautiful, beautiful weekend. I'm so grateful for all of you. Thank you.